Thank you so much. I am Dr. Kirk Adams. I'm speaking to you from my office in Seattle. And to meet my access needs today, I'm using a laptop with JAWS, screen reading software, and a refreshable Braille display to navigate the Zoom platform, which we just did. And I'm reading notes on a Android-based tablet that also has refreshable Braille. And I want to thank Paolo for including me and introducing me to Leslie. And today I want to talk about how people with disabilities are actually experiencing the dynamics of merit and inclusion in the workplace. I want to do that by exploring 9 themes that I discovered in my doctoral work. I have a doctorate in leadership and change from Antioch, completed about 6 years ago, so the research is still pretty fresh. But my dissertation is called Journeys Through Rough Country, an ethnographic study of blind adults employed in large American corporations. So I interviewed a lot of really cool blind people working at companies whose names we all know, and identified 9 themes I want to talk about that relate to merit and inclusion. But first I want to frame my comments with establishment of 2 really important concepts. The first is the distinction between impairment and disability. So the medical model of disability, which is still the most current in our country, the most prevalent, is that if you have an impairment, a visual impairment such as I have, being totally blind since age 5, a hearing impairment, mobility, cognitive, that you are broken, and we'll do our best to fix you through medical processes. And if you can't be fixed, then you are a disabled person, and we'll assume that your contributions can only be less than those who aren't disabled. And that's really codified in things like the Americans with Disabilities Act. You know, the definition of disability is someone who has 1 or more impairments that significantly impact life function. But in actuality, disabling situations occur when those of us with impairments have a poor fit between ourselves and the socially created environments we all live in, the built environment, the digital environment, the social environment. So a couple examples I like to use often is if I am asked to run a board meeting, which I've been asked to do many times, and I walk in and sit at the conference table, and my agenda and financial statements and committee reports are there in Braille. As I am a Braille reader, I access information through Braille, just like a sighted person accesses through print. I am not in a disabling situation. My impairment is always with me, but I am able to function effectively in that environment because I have Braille. If I walk in and sit down and there's a stack of print beside me, then my impairment has placed me in a disabling situation because the built environment of print does not allow effective operational fit. And often, if I'm in a live audience, I'll ask, "Is anyone here, 5'2" or shorter?" And there's always a few people. And I say, if you walk into a room and there's a package that you need and it's on a shelf that's 8 feet off the ground, your characteristic of your height does not allow you to effectively interact with the built environment of that shelf. So you're going to need to get a tool like a step stool, or you're going to need to form a team with a taller person. And you might want to consider modifying that built environment by building a lower shelf for next time. So just a very important distinction between an impairment and a disability, and the fact that the disabling situations are very fluid. We move in and out of disabling situations. If we have a permanent impairment, people can have temporary impairments. If you are skiing and tear your ACL, if you have a chemotherapy, if you have an addiction that you are dealing with, you can be put in temporary disabling situations. The second concept is really how we develop strengths through the lived experience of disability. There's a book I like called The Talent Code that talks about how people develop strengths. That's through overcoming increasingly difficult challenges. And if you are going to become a world-class athlete or a concert musician or chess champion, you're going to be placed in front of increasingly difficult challenges in a very intentional, thoughtful way. Living living every day with with impairments, you are put in increasingly challenging situations, and as you progress through life, as you move through school, through graduation, through employment, relationships, marriage, all those things, as life becomes increasingly complex, so do the challenges we meet. And we are able to develop some really unique strengths around things like resilience and perseverance and creative problem solving and the ability to create teams and work in teams, the ability to analyze and manage risk, communication skills. So all of the things that employers in the current environment say they are looking for in employees, which leads us to the conundrum that only 35% of us with significant disabilities are in the workforce. And many of us we're in a much narrower band of occupations than the general population. We're in lower paying jobs than the average general population. So there's a lot of issues around poverty and all the bad things that happen with poverty. But I did want to talk about my 9 themes just briefly. I asked everyone if they would self-identify as successfully employed, and I asked what they based that on, and everyone said money, compensation, to be able to make financial decisions, to have the freedom to make choices. So everyone had that very, very clearly. Looking for my quote. Ah, I'll go to the second one. The second one is agency, or a strong internal locus of control, which means people feel in their bones they can overcome challenges, can create their pathway forward. And one of the people I interviewed, Savannah, she said, I fell down a set of stairs. So that's what led me to go to the Orientation Center for the Blind. That changed things for me. She got engaged in hiking, rock climbing, downhill skiing, and developed that strong sense of agency. The third was really around merit, it's knowledge, skills, and abilities. And Anthony said, I don't think they knew I was blind. If you can come in and do the code, then usually they're pretty happy about that. So that speaks to the fact that in order for a person with a disability, an impairment, to become successfully employed in the workplace, you need to be able to meet the requirements of the job and to be able to deliver. The fourth theme was family. And Henry said, my family gained self-realization that we could work with this blindness thing and that there would be no reason other than what other people put up in terms of barriers why I couldn't be as successful as their other 3 boys. The fifth theme was teams and groups, which is really interesting to me. Almost everyone talked about being involved in some sort of formal organized team or group, which leads back again to the strengths comment I made earlier about working in teams. So Clara said, I did lots of sports growing up, learning teamwork. The sixth theme related to the immediate supervisor. And again, everyone talked about having the understanding with their immediate supervisor that given the right supports, the right tools, techniques, technologies, they could be a contributing member of the team on a par or excel in relative terms in the organization. So Lee talked about his supervisor. He said he really saw me as somebody who had some capabilities, where other people had seen me as somebody who had a disability. The seventh theme was employer of the provision of accommodations and accessibility, and that's back to the elimination of disabling situations. if I was asked to join this Zoom call today and you handed me a laptop that did not have screen reading software, I could not be with you today. I have an accommodation, a piece of software called JAWS. And Tristan said, having the software tools, first of all, being fully accessible and usable in a way that makes someone with a disability able to be completely productive. The eighth theme was the senior management support. And Henry said, our whole senior management team here is very supportive. Diversity and inclusion, they're not only looking at it from an employment perspective, diversity is a multi-threaded strategy. And the ninth and final theme, which was really, really enlightening for me, was disappointment. Everybody talked about being disappointed in the fact that given their performance, their contributions, were still barriers often not explicitly described in their workplace. People talked about the fact they were the only person with a disclosed disability to reach the level they had in the org chart, that they weren't seeing people with self-disclosed disabilities in the C-suite or on the board or in leadership, that they were seeing people without disclosed disability or impairment being promoted beyond them, despite their less seniority and lower levels of knowledge, skills, and abilities. And Tristan said, I experience a lot of roadblocks along the way, particularly in the area of work tools that I've needed. It has made me feel more alienated than I've ever felt. So those were the very quick order, the 9 themes I discovered in my ethnographic interviews with a large number of blind professionals working in large companies, which I think has very, very direct bearing to the discussion of merit and inclusion. And I would love to move into conversation with you, Leslie.
Absolutely perfect, perfect timing. I just turned on my camera to join you. Thank you so much for that, Kurt. I think so many important nuggets you shared. One of the things I love the story, but I really want people to understand. You said what you need and what you have at your hands can determine how you move in a situation. And I think it can't be assumed that people know what you need. And
Oh, absolutely.
we spoke
That
about this in our last
yeah.
call.
Well, that's one thing I learned. It was interesting because when I first started laying out my dissertation and talking to my dissertation committee,
Mm.
I thought I'll do a 360. I'll interview the blind person, I'll interview a colleague, I'll interview a supervisor. And one of the people on my dissertation committee said, well, if you want the truth, just talk to the blind individuals because they know the perspectives of their colleagues, they know the perspectives of their supervisor. Those other people are not going to give you accurate data. The people who are blind who are in the workplace are the people who have the knowledge that you're seeking. So, um,
Yes.
and I and I was on I was on a panel a couple of weeks ago here in Seattle, an organization called Seattle Cultural Access Consortium, and in the Q&A, someone said, "How do we connect with disabled youth? How can we engage with disabled youth?" And I said,
Mhm.
"Listen to them. They are
Absolutely.
the experts on their lives. They know what they need. They know what's best for them. Ask them and listen."
And the fact that ask them, listen, not assume. But the biggest thing is what we spoke about. You are blind, and everyone may just assume he reads Braille.
Right,
Everyone reads Braille that's blind, but that is
right,
not the case.
right. In that same panel Q&A, someone said they were at a theater and someone came and asked for the headset so they could listen to the audio description, and the person handed them the headset and the Braille program. So they made an assumption that
Mhm.
because they were there with their guide dog and they were asking for audio description, that they were a Braille reader. And the person said they really seemed offended. And I said, well, you made an assumption about what they need. And probably the proper way to do it is to say, I just wanted to let you know that we do have a Braille program available if that would be useful to you. And then that
Absolutely.
person makes the decision, is it useful to me or not?
And that's why I always say there's accessibility, right? But there's usability. Are you handing someone something that they can actually use? And you only know that by asking. So that goes back into in a workplace where is, and I love, what did you say? I wrote it down. The environment, a built-in environment. They have
Yeah,
designed this
there's
office.
there's three environments we talk about. Usually
Okay.
the built environment, which is streets and sidewalks and buildings and
Hmm.
stairs and ramps and elevators, and then the digital environment, which is websites and apps and software tools that we all use, and then the social environment. And we've built all those as a society.
We built all of that from a society from an ADA perspective, but an ADA beyond the requirements, there has to be, if you're going to go off of merit and who's the best, then you have to use that merit line with everyone and not the assumption of if someone has a disability, sight seen or unseen, their merit scale is different. So, how has that conversation, has anyone shared that conversation? You already spoke about the pay equity is not there. I'm sure the environment or where you live or color, size, shape, everything comes into play when you're hiring someone with a disability. What's the merit level, the realistic merit level?
Well, I think it's how I think about it as contribution. So if you're in an organization of any size, you have various individuals in various roles, um, and the organization is trying to align everyone's activities with a mission, with a purpose. We're trying to accomplish something, and we're all lending our efforts to accomplish whatever that thing is. And how can people contribute? How can people bring their best selves, their best thinking, their best contributions to that to achieving that shared mission? And in order to really do the best job you can, you want a lot of different talents, a lot of different tools in the toolbox. I say if you're hiring a bunch of not to denigrate a Harvard MBA, but if you've hired a bunch of Harvard MBAs, you've got a lot of people who've learned the same things, who have the same tools in the toolbox. They're great, shiny, sharp tools,
Mhm.
but they might not be the best tool for every job. So having people with lived experience of disability on teams brings a perspective that those individuals won't be able to bring. And I'll give a high five to my friends at Microsoft across the lake here in Redmond, Washington.
Mhm.
They've been working on disability inclusion for a long time, since I first encountered their work in the mid 90s. So they have lots of people with disabilities across the lake, probably 400 blind people, and not just in roles associated with accessibility or assistive technology, just program managers and coders and HR professionals and marketing folks. And that has given them the opportunity to really understand intrinsically what inclusion and accessibility and usability looks like.
Absolutely, because inclusion doesn't mean showing up and being in the room. And I hate the saying being invited to dance because you can be
Yeah,
invited to dance all day. And if you don't understand how to dance or don't have the rhythm or the count, you're just in the room, maybe moving, but not actually
right.
dancing.
Well, I say inclusion, inclusion is being invited to the party, but it may be on the fourth floor with no elevator. So uh,
Absolutely. And
accessibility and usability is being invited to the party that you can actually get through the door.
get through the door and then be able to have the success to have the tools you need to succeed once you're in that door. And so you made it, I love that you said when you look speaking with someone that has disabilities, there's already things that are built in because of having to live experience, strength, critical thinking, being able to understand the environment in a different way, which is an advantage to any company that truly says they want to be inclusive or that they want to have invite everyone that has the merit of skills to work there.
Right. In one day, going to SeaTac Airport and flying to, for instance, National Airport in DC or LaGuardia or Logan in Boston, during that 8 or 9 hours, I will have creatively solved dozens of problems.
I'm sure you have.
So we're creatively solving problems every day, all day long.
And so the issue is companies, organizations really do need to listen. The saying, nothing about us without us, is a solid statement in the disability
Well,
community.
Leslie, I've modified that. Now I say
Tell me.
nothing without us.
How about that? How about that? I'm taking that with you. I will give you credit.
Thank you.
Nothing without, because if you're going to go off of merit, what it meant years ago, which true skills and opportunity, then there really needs to be nothing about anyone you are building something for that's not at that table having a valid voice at the table, because it's no longer good enough to be in a room if your voice is not valued to make the changes that are needed.
That's right.
Mhm. So on closing, what you gave great things, but what is the maybe top two things? And I know you're not speaking for the entire disability
Yeah.
community that you want employers to really understand.
Well, I think I started with both of them. So first, the distinction between an impairment and a disability.
Yeah.
Just because I have an impairment does not mean I am always in disabling situations. And if we can eliminate as many disabling situations as possible, then I, as a fully functioning human being, can deliver extraordinary results. And secondly, the thought around strengths, the unique strengths that are developed by those of us who live every day with disability, and the challenges we face, and the challenges we overcome, and the creativity and perseverance and tools around community and inclusion and teamwork and communication that we bring to bear.
Thank you. There is a question, and it says, have you seen a societal shift in mindset over the past 5, 10, 20 years towards disability, toward blind individuals in the workplace?
I absolutely have. So let's go back 100 years
Okay.
when we had asylums for the blind and homes for the blind. And let's go back to the 60s where we had hire the handicapped. And now we're actually talking about disability inclusion as a strategic advantage. And I think it kind of is following a little bit the arc of the environmental movement,
Mhm.
where in the 70s we started talking about making the green choice and carbon footprint and zero waste stream and LEED buildings. And no one really knew what that was. And there were some early adopters. And now it's pretty much a given that that's part of our business landscape and business strategy. And I think disability inclusion seems to be following something similar. And I will give a shout out to disabilityin.org, which are 500 of our large corporations who've made disability inclusion commitments. I'd like to also make people aware of the vocational rehabilitation system in our country. Every state has vocational rehabilitation agencies that have individuals on staff who can work with employers to find out what their operational needs are and can help match them with qualified applicants with disabilities and provide lots of other supports.
Wonderful. Thank you. I will say that I have just started volunteering for Be My Eyes
Oh, good.
and waiting for my call. And if anyone doesn't know what that is, it is an app that maybe you can even explain it better. I don't know if you use it or if you have friends that have used it. I hope you find it beneficial.
I use it a lot.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'll hear your cheerful voice sometime when I open up the Be My Eyes app and I call for a volunteer and I say, how long is this supposed to bake? What is this? What are these baking instructions here?
Absolutely. I'm hoping I get the first fashion call so I can help someone put their outfit together, since that's a passion of mine.
There
But
you
I
go.
will take any call. For any of you that don't know, and I'm going to end this soon, Be My Eyes is an app where you can volunteer your eyes to someone who is blind to help them do whatever they may need at that moment. And I am very happy
Well,
to
thank you for volunteering, Leslie. We appreciate it.
absolutely, absolutely. Kurt, it has been wonderful speaking to you leading up to the conference. I hope to stay in touch with you. You are amazing. I hope people walk away with better and new understandings about disabilities in the workplace.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to reach me, I'm on LinkedIn every day. Kirk Adams, PhD. Reach out. Thanks, Leslie. Thanks,
Thank,
Paolo.
have a
Thank
great
you,
day.
Kirk. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow, this has been just a phenomenal day.